Hello, everyone. I'm your teacher for this course, Dan Tui. This is Engineering Ethics, winter quarter 2023. I want to apologize for being a little late in getting you the necessary introductory materials. I've been working on this course a little bit recently, trying to do some new things. So I've adjusted, and I'm in the process of adjusting things, but I wanted to make clear what the course was about and what your requirements are for the course in this video. I will be sending out more explicit introductory written materials as the week progresses. This is engineering ethics. I have taught it many times. I think I'm in maybe my 25th year off and on of teaching engineering ethics, and I have taught it in different ways over the years, many different ways. But I have to say that the first few years that I taught it, I had no idea what I was doing. And I apologize to those students if they have any memory of my engineering ethics classes in the late 90s and early 2000s. The turning point for me as a teacher of this course was the recognition that there was something called a profession and that there was something called professional ethics. And ever since, that's the way that I've taught it. This is a course in professional ethics. The question of whether engineering actually qualifies as a profession is an open question. I am not at all resistant to objections to the idea that engineering is a profession or that engineers need to be held to the admittedly higher standards and duties of professional ethics. I think that's part of a philosophy course, and the history of engineering is such that question of whether engineering actually qualifies as a profession, or that anyone would really want it to be a profession, that is an open question. And it is the question that will never leave engineering ethics as long as we think about engineering. So I'm open to that. However, I am committed, despite the uncertainties, to teaching this course as a course in professional ethics. And one way to do that, I think the most obvious way to do that, is to concentrate on codes of ethics, which is what we'll be doing in this course. The central text for us, the defining text for us, is the NSPE Code of Ethics. The NSPE is the National Society of Professional Engineers. It is a lively, very active engineering society, professional society. And the word professional is maybe a little ambiguous here because you as engineers and me as who knows something, a little bit about the field of engineering, knows that there's something called being a PE, professional engineer, and getting your PE license. And that is an issue. That is certainly an issue in engineering ethics, the idea of licensing, things like that. But I want to be clear that I don't consider only PEs to be professional engineers. I think that anybody who calls themselves an engineer and engages in any work that can be called engineering work is, at least by my definition, a member of the engineering profession and therefore a professional. So whatever your plans are, whatever field or specialty field of engineering you are in, and whatever you eventually hope to do, and whether or not it includes getting your PE license, I consider you as preparing yourself to enter into the profession of engineering. The NSP Code of Ethics, the NSPE is specifically for professional engineers, licensed professional engineers. However, the Code of Ethics applies to all engineers. That is, the presumption in the cases that we'll look at, the BER cases that we'll look at, and BER is the Board of Ethical Review of the NSPE. The presumption there is that all engineers are subject to the Code of Ethics that they lay out, the NSP Code of Ethics. So, the word professional is a difficult concept. It is not very well defined. It is controversial. It is, as someone said once, an historical concept. That is, it emerged historically. It changes from history. It's not easy to define. Um, but that ambiguity is part of engineering ethics, part of all professional ethics. But let me just make clear that I consider the NSPE code to apply to you, whether you ever aspire to get your PE license or not. But the NSPE Code of Ethics is our central text. It is the one that will guide us and will continually return to, and will serve, mostly through the Board of Ethical Review cases, which we'll be looking at, will serve as the most of the reading of this course. Just to give you an outline of what I plan for the course over the 10 weeks, I think the first 6 or 7 weeks we will be exploring through Board of Ethical Review cases, which you'll become quite familiar with, and through some readings. First of all, what it means to be a professional. And secondly, we will then look through various aspects, not exhaustively, not in total, but I would say some of the most prominent parts of the NSPE code, pretty much defined by the fundamental canons, the 6 canons. That'll be the first 6 or 7 weeks of the course. And then the last 3 to 4 weeks will be a little different. We will then look at some issues in engineering ethics in light of whether or not they should be in some way or another change the code of ethics. That is, the code of ethics covers a lot of things, and we'll see some of those things, and we'll explore why they are covered. There are some additional issues. One having to do with misogyny and sexual harassment in the field of engineering. One having to do with racism in the field of engineering. And then probably our third topic will be environmentalism in the field of engineering. These different issues, which I think are of prime concern. We will be asking ourselves whether these issues should be explicitly addressed in the Code of Ethics, NSP Code of Ethics. As of right now, they are not. Maybe environmentalism to some degree, but not really. But certainly the issues of misogyny, discrimination, and prejudice against female engineers, and the issue of racism within engineering is not something that's explicitly referred to, mentioned in the NSP Code of Ethics. So that and the general issue of the fourth canon, the duty to be a faithful agent of your employer, which is a very important topic also, and whether that needs to be addressed in the NSP Code of Ethics. Basically, the conflict between the first canon, the duty to the public, to protect the public, and the fourth canon, the duty to be a faithful agent or trustee of one's client or employer, is another issue we'll be looking at, whether that needs to be addressed. It's something that I've asked students to look at before. So you can think of this class as being the first half, or maybe the first 6 weeks, being an exploration of different aspects of engineering ethics as these things are noted and described in the NSP Code of Ethics. Questions of duty to protect the public, which is the first canon and the heart and soul of engineering ethics. The first canon, they hold paramount the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Questions of conflict of interest and financial matters, questions of duties to the employer, questions of the different aspects of first making public statements as an engineer, things like that. We'll be looking at prominent issues, prominent questions raised, prominent things touched upon by the NSP Code of Ethics, and that is really, let's say, the first roughly half of the course. The second is a more critical exploration of perhaps, and again, this is an open question. I'm not saying that these things are decided, but perhaps the need for the code to be changed, especially the code to be added to, so that it explicitly refers to questions like misogyny, like racism, and frankly, like the ambiguities of the fourth canon, which lay out your duties to your employer and or client and all the problems there, which is a very fundamental issue. really the question of whether the code needs to be changed, which I think should make things interesting. As far as let's talk about just the major quarter-wide assignments. After our explanation or exploration of the code of ethics, there will be an exam, let's say around week 6 or 7. And then at the end of the course, there will be an essay that will be required. And that essay will be you giving your own opinion. And please feel free, I hope that everyone feels free to give their honest opinion about whether or not the code actually does need to be changed to include things, specific reference to things like misogyny, sexual harassment, racism, global warming, or the environmental crisis that we're undergoing. Really your own opinion, your own studied scholarly opinion on whether the code really should be changed. And the answer to that can be yes or no. That's none of my business as long as it's well argued. So those are the two big assignments overall. There'll be an exam. I'll give you the specific date once I work it out. But the exam around week 6 or 7. I know that's a little late, but there'll be an exam on basically having to do with the code, NSPE code, and the Board of Ethical Review cases that we look at, and the few readings that we do. And then, again, at the end, there will be, let's say, a 4 to 5 page essay in which you explore the idea and you argue for or against the idea that the code needs to be amended to include any of these issues or to refer to any of these issues. So those are the two big overall course requirements, assignments that you'll do, that exam and that essay at the end. The other thing is the weekly assignments, which are fairly simple. If we look at week 1, there are some readings. I want you to look at the Code of Ethics. I want you to look at some aspects of the Ethics Reference Guide. And I want you to read Paul Sieghart's essay, Professions as a Conscience of Society. There are also videos to watch. If you click anything that has a link here, it'll be a video of me talking about the course or talking about the week's reading. It just takes you to a video on my YouTube channel. Or should take you a video. There we go. Just looking at some aspects of this week's reading. So those are there for you to watch, help with your comprehension of the readings, week's readings and the questions. Then there's always going to be a set of study questions, which is something you need to turn in by Sunday evening, every week. So the first week.
Hello, everyone. This is forward in the NSPE ethics reference.
Seems to have started up there. Sorry about that. Yes, so these are due always by Sunday evening. So this week's will be due this coming Sunday evening at midnight. And then there is a discussion board that you need to participate in. The discussion board does not have a prompt. It doesn't have any suggestions from me or any questions from me about what you need to respond to in the reading. What I'd like you to do in the discussion board is just give me a substantive reflection on the week's materials. What did you think of them? Anything that you thought about them. Just remember that the discussion board, and this will become clear in the syllabus and other introductory materials, that the discussion board requires that you post at least twice. Once where you state, let's say in a paragraph or two, what your commentary on the week's readings and materials. And then at least one substantive, thoughtful response to someone else's. So you have to post at least twice to get full credit for the discussion board. So I hope that helps. I hope that gives you a sense of what the course is about, engineering as a profession, using the NSPE Code of Ethics as a basis for the exploration of that, the division of the course into roughly the first half being an exploration of the code as it's written, the second half being an inquiry into whether the code should be amended and changed to address issues of concern within the engineering community. And then, the two major requirements for the course, the exam on the material about week 6 or 7, and then the essay at the end, as I described, and then the weekly assignments which are more or less ungraded assignments, as long as you do them properly. It's fine. Of the study questions and the discussion board. I've given you my cell phone and my email. If you have any questions about the course, please feel free to contact me, and I'd be happy to do what I can to explain things. Welcome, everyone. It's a good course. It's a good course to take as an engineer to explore engineering ethics, believe me.